You have two children, same house, same rules, same bedtime, same, please use your words. One of them hears time to go and puts on their shoes. The other one hears time to go and the world ends. You've tried everything on the second one, the charts, the countdowns, the deep breaths, the books. You've asked every question you can think of. And still, every morning, the same fight. So you start to wonder, what am I doing wrong? Maybe nothing. Maybe the question was always wrong. For over 70 years, researchers have been studying something most parents were never taught. Something that explains why the same approach works beautifully on one child and falls completely flat on another. It's called temperament. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your child's behavior the same way again. Here's what most of us were told, in one way or another. Some kids are easy, some kids are difficult. The easy ones listen. They sleep through the night by 3 months old. They sit quietly in restaurants. They make you look like you know what you're doing. The difficult ones? They fight bedtime. They scream at the grocery store. They refuse to wear socks because the seam is wrong. They make you question every choice you've ever made as a parent. And so we label them. The easy one and the hard one. The good one and the challenging one. Sometimes out loud, sometimes just in our heads, late at night when the guilt is loudest. But here's what the research actually shows. There is no such thing as a difficult child. There are difficult fits. Ross Green, a clinical psychologist who wrote The Explosive Child, puts it this way. Kids do well if they can. When they can't, it's because they're missing a skill, not because they're choosing to be hard. The child who melts down at every transition isn't being defiant. They're stuck. Their brain hasn't built the flexibility to handle what you're asking of it. And that completely changes how you respond to them. Think of it like this. Every child arrives with a thermostat. It's set from birth. Some are set high, they run hot, feel everything intensely, and react fast and loud. Others are set low. They're cooler, slower to warm, and quieter in their responses. The thermostat itself isn't the problem. The problem comes when the climate of the home, the expectations, the pace, the noise level, and the structure don't match the setting. A child set too high in a home that demands low? Friction. Every single day. A child set too low in a home that pushes high energy, fast transitions, and constant stimulation? Withdrawal. Shutdown. The fit is what matters. Two researchers figured this out before most parents had even heard the word temperament. Their names were Alexander Thomas and Stella Chess. And what they found in 1956 changed developmental science forever. In 1956, Thomas and Chess started something called the New York Longitudinal Study. They followed 133 children from infancy all the way into adulthood. Over 30 years of watching, measuring, and documenting how these kids moved through the world. What they found was that from the very beginning, babies arrived different. And the differences weren't random. They fell along 9 measurable dimensions of temperament. 9 dimensions? That sounds like a lot. So here's how to think about it. Those 9 dimensions cluster into 5 areas that actually make sense when you watch your child at the dinner table, or at the park, or 10 minutes before school. Let's walk through each one. And as we do, think about your child. Think about which settings are turned up and which ones are turned down. Because every child has a unique combination. The first cluster is reactivity. This is about how strongly your child responds to things and what their emotional baseline looks like. Some kids have a small disappointment. The red cup is in the dishwasher, and shrug. Others have the same disappointment and crumble. Both responses are real. Both are valid. The difference is wiring. Thomas and Chess measured 2 dimensions here. Intensity of reaction, how big the response is, and quality of mood, whether the child's default setting leans positive or negative. A high-intensity child feels everything at volume 10. Joy is ecstatic. Frustration is explosive. Sadness is the end of the world. Boredom is unbearable. They aren't being dramatic. Their internal amplifier is just louder. Mary Sheedy Kurcinka, who wrote Raising Your Spirited Child, calls this being more. These kids are more intense, more sensitive, more persistent, more everything. And that more is built in. The second cluster is regularity. How predictable is your child's internal clock? Some children are like clockwork, hungry at the same time every day, tired at the same time every night. Their bodies run on schedule, and when you follow that schedule, everything flows. Other children? Their hunger shows up randomly. Their sleep is unpredictable. Tuesday's routine means nothing on Wednesday. Thomas and Chess called this rhythmicity, the regularity of biological functions like sleep, hunger, and digestion. They also measured activity level here. How much physical energy the child carries and how much movement their body needs. A high-activity, low-rhythmicity child is the one who can't sit still at dinner, isn't hungry when you serve food, and then wants a snack at 9 p.m. They aren't misbehaving. Their internal rhythm just runs on a different beat. Third, adaptability. How does your child handle change and new situations? This is the cluster that shows up every morning when you say, "Time to go," and one child moves and the other one freezes. It shows up at birthday parties, at new schools, at the relative's house they haven't visited in 6 months. Thomas and Chess measured 2 dimensions here. Adaptability. How quickly a child adjusts to changes in routine or expectations. And approach/withdrawal. Whether a child's first instinct with something new is to move toward it or pull back from it. 35% of the children in their study didn't fit any single category. But the ones they called slow to warm up, about 15% of kids, lived right here. First response, withdraw. Given time, they come around. Push too fast, they shut down. Susan Cain writes about this in Quiet, The Power of Introverts. Our world rewards the child who walks into the room and owns it. The loud one, the fast one, the one who jumps right in. And it quietly punishes the child who hangs back. Who watches first? Who needs 20 minutes before they're ready to join? But Cain's research shows that those children aren't lacking anything. They're processing. And the societies and families that make room for that let the slow-to-warm child arrive on their own terms, raise some of the most thoughtful, observant, deeply connected people you'll ever meet. Jerome Kagan at Harvard spent decades studying this. He found that children who were high reactive as infants, they cried more, startled more, and tensed more in response to new stimuli, had amygdalas that fired harder. The amygdala is the part of your brain that sounds the alarm when something feels unfamiliar. In these kids, that alarm is just louder. Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson explain this beautifully in The Whole Brain Child. They describe the brain as having an upstairs and a downstairs. The downstairs brain, where the amygdala lives, handles big emotions, fight or flight, and survival instincts. The upstairs brain handles reasoning, patience, and self-control. And here's the thing. The upstairs brain isn't fully built until your mid-20s. So when your slow-to-adapt child freezes at a new situation, they're running on the downstairs brain. The alarm is firing, and the part of the brain that could calm it down is literally still under construction. And here's what stayed with researchers. When Kagan brought those same kids back as adults, decades later, their brains still showed higher activation in the amygdala when shown unfamiliar faces. The wiring held. Fourth, sensitivity. How much does your child notice? How deeply do they absorb the world around them? Some kids walk into a room and register everything. The hum of the lights, the tag on their shirt, the smell of someone's lunch from 2 rooms away, the look on your face when you think you're hiding your frustration. Thomas and Chess called this the sensory threshold, how much stimulation it takes to get a reaction. A low threshold child reacts to very little. A high threshold child needs a lot more before they even notice. They also measured distractibility, how easily a child's attention is pulled by something new in the environment. Put those two together, and you get a child who is either constantly absorbing, low threshold, high distractibility, or comfortably tuning things out, high threshold, low distractibility. Elaine Aron wrote an entire book about this cluster. It's called The Highly Sensitive Child. Her research shows that about 15 to 20% of children process sensory input more deeply than average. They aren't fragile. Their nervous system is just wired to take in more. And when the environment gives them too much, too fast, they overflow. The sock with the wrong seam? That's a low sensory threshold in action. It's real, it's physical, and no amount of just ignore it will change the wiring. And the fifth cluster? Persistence. How long does your child lock onto something? How hard do they push before they give up? Or refuse to give up at all? Thomas and Chess measured attention span and persistence together. Some children start a puzzle and stay with it until every piece is placed, even if it takes an hour. Others lose interest after 2 minutes and move on. High persistence children are the ones who argue about bedtime for 45 minutes. Those who refuse to put on a different shirt. Who will not stop asking, "But why?" until they get a real answer. This is the trait that drives parents the craziest at age 4 and makes those same parents the most proud at age 24. Kurcinka calls them locked in. And she's right. The same child who won't stop negotiating tonight is the adult who won't quit on a hard project, a dream, or a relationship. So there they are, 5 clusters: reactivity, regularity, adaptability, sensitivity, and persistence. Every child has their own combination, their own thermostat settings, and none of them is wrong. Here's where it gets personal. You know the loop. You've lived it. Your child does something. Maybe they refuse to get dressed. Maybe they melt down at the store. Maybe they hit their sibling for the 3rd time today. You react. Maybe you stay calm the first time. Maybe even the second time. But by the 3rd time, your voice gets loud or cold, or you walk away and close the door because you don't trust what you'll say next. And then the guilt hits. Always at night. Always when they're asleep and their face is soft and they look so small. I shouldn't have yelled. I should have been more patient. Why can't I figure this out? That loop, the trigger, the reaction, the guilt, the repeat runs in millions of homes every single day. And for most parents, it feels like a personal failure. But hold on. When that loop runs on repeat for years, it quietly shapes things that matter far beyond tonight. A child who is constantly misread, treated as difficult when they're just wired differently, starts to believe the label. Their confidence bends. Their willingness to try new things shrinks. Their relationship with you, the person they need most, starts to carry static. The research bears this out. Caspi and Silva followed over 800 children from age 3 to adulthood in the Dunedin Study, one of the longest-running studies of its kind. 96% of the original kids were tracked. And what they found was that children classified as under-controlled at age 3, high reactive, intense, impulsive, scored significantly higher on aggression, impulsivity, and interpersonal alienation as adults. The ones classified as inhibited, withdrawn, fearful, slow to warm, scored lower on social connection and risk-taking decades later. Temperament at 3 predicted personality at 26. The wiring held. But, and this is the part I need you to hear, the wiring held because the environment stayed the same. When the fit stayed poor, the outcomes followed. When the fit changed, so did the story. In 1994, a researcher named Drika van den Boom took a group of highly irritable infants and randomly split them. Half the mothers got a 3-month training in responsive parenting. The other half didn't. The result? Secure attachment in the trained group jumped by 300%. Same babies, same temperaments, different fit. The thermostat didn't change. The climate did. And that's the hope in all of this. You can't rewire your child's temperament, but you can change the climate they grow up in. You can learn their settings and adjust yours. That changes everything. Their emotional regulation, their mental health, their relationships, their belief in themselves. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to look. So, what does this look like in real life? What do you actually do with this? Here are 5 ways to start adjusting the climate in your home. Small, repeatable things. You can start the first one tonight. 1. Name the setting, not the behavior. When your child melts down, pause before you label it. Instead of she's being difficult or he's overreacting, try she's high intensity. This is what big feelings look like in her body. Or he's slow to adapt. This transition is hard because his system needs more time. The label changes the story, and the story changes your response. 2. Adjust the environment before the meltdown. If your child has a low sensory threshold, the noisy restaurant at 6 p.m. on a Saturday is going to be hard. That's predictable. You know their settings now, so plan around them. Bring the noise-canceling headphones, choose the booth in the corner, or eat earlier when it's quieter. This is adjusting the climate to match the thermostat, and it's the single fastest way to reduce daily conflict. 3. Give transition warnings, especially for slow-to-adapt kids. If your child struggles with change, don't spring things on them. Give a 10-minute warning, then 5, then 2. Let their system prepare for what's coming. In 5 minutes, we're going to leave the park. That one sentence, said calmly and said early, can be the difference between a smooth exit and a 20-minute standoff at the gate. 4. Match your energy to theirs, not the other way around. A high-intensity child in a high-intensity moment doesn't need you to match their volume. They need you to come down. Slow your voice, lower your body, get on their level, literally. And a low-energy, withdrawn child doesn't need you to fill the silence with instructions. Sometimes they just need you to sit beside them. Quiet. Present. Letting them come to you at their own pace. You're reading the thermostat and setting the room accordingly. 5. Tell them what you see, out loud. I can see that was really hard for you. You stuck with that puzzle for a long time. That takes a lot of focus. New places feel big, don't they? We can take it slow. When you name what's happening inside your child, 2 things happen. First, they feel seen. That alone can diffuse a meltdown faster than any consequence. Dan Siegel calls this name it to tame it. When a child hears the words for what they're feeling, their brain actually calms down. The act of naming brings the upstairs brain online and quiets the alarm downstairs. Second, you're teaching them to understand their own wiring. You're giving them the words for what their body already knows. And that skill, knowing yourself and reading your own settings, is one of the most valuable things a human being can carry into adulthood. Your child came into this world with settings already in place. You didn't choose those settings, and neither did they. But you can learn them, you can honor them, and you can build a home where those settings actually make sense. Thomas and Chess followed those 133 children for over 30 years. And the ones who did well, they weren't the easy ones. They were the ones whose parents learned to read them, whose families adjusted the climate to fit the child. Goodness of fit, that's what they called it. And it starts with one question. What does my child need from me? If this resonated with you, think of one parent in your life, a friend, a sibling, a partner, Someone who is in the thick of it right now, the sleepless nights, the meltdowns, the guilt, the am I doing this right? Send them this video. Not because they're doing something wrong, but because they need to hear what you just heard. That their child came with a design, that their presence is enough, that their calm is the most powerful tool they have, that they don't have to be perfect, they just have to be there. And if you want to go deeper, pick up Raising Your Spirited Child by Mary Sheedy Kurcinka. Read The Explosive Child by Ross W. Green. Sit with the Highly Sensitive Child by Elaine and Aron. The Whole Brain Child by Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. And Quiet, The Power of Introverts by Susan Cain. These books will change the way you see your child and the way you see yourself. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being the kind of parent who stays curious.